The universal injunction has become a weapon against the Trump administration, has it not?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemate, what's a universal injunction?
Senator, a universal injunction is what we call an order from a court enjoining the government.
What's the statutory basis for a federal judge issuing an order that affects people other than the parties before the court?
I'm not aware of a statutory basis, Senator.
There is no statutory basis, is there?
No, Senator.
How can a judge, a federal judge, issue an order that affects everybody else other than those in front of him or her? How is that possible?
It shouldn't be possible, Senator, but district courts do it all the time.
Only about 27 universal injunctions were issued in the 20th century. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, Senator.
But 86 of them were issued against President Trump in his first term. Is that correct?
I don't know the specific number, but they were a high number.
And so far in President Trump's second term, 30 universal injunctions have been issued against him, have they not?
Senator, I don't have a specific number, but that sounds about right.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's good to see you today on the Speak and See show. Please like, subscribe, and click that notification button so when we get information out, you can get information in. This is going to be so eye-opening for so many of you out there. I mean, how is it that a small-town judge in Kalamazoo can wipe out a whole mandate by the American people from the president? Well, they're doing it. We're going to go over this information from bottom to top and so you get an idea of what these things are. Universal injunction, nationwide injunction, potato, same thing. It's the same thing. But are they appropriate when used in moderation as opposed to abusing the power of them? They're not even statutory. They're not even, it was never written into law that you're allowed to do this. I mean, that first and foremost should be kind of at the top of the Americans' minds where, where's the constitutional value of these things? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not heard this from Senator Kennedy, who just goes off. He just goes off. Check it out. Like, subscribe, and if you're led, please click that notification button. We are so grateful and thankful for you watching. Please let us know what you think about this. Grab a drink.
Mr. Shoemate, what's a universal injunction?
Senator, a universal injunction is what we call an order from a court enjoining the government in a way that goes beyond the parties to the case, but applies nationwide or in some cases universally to enjoin the government.
Is it sometimes referred to as a nationwide injunction?
Yes, it is, Senator.
Okay. What's the statutory basis for a federal judge issuing an order that affects people other than the parties before the court?
I'm not aware of a statutory basis, Senator.
There is no statutory basis, is there?
No, Senator.
What's the United States Supreme Court opinion which interprets the Constitution in a way that allows a federal district court judge to do this? Can you name me that case?
I'm not aware of one, Senator.
There isn't one, is there?
I'm not aware of one, Senator.
Now, explain to me how this works. You have a plaintiff and you have a defendant, and the plaintiff files a lawsuit and goes in front of a federal judge. Federal judge has certain jurisdiction in personam and subject matter over the parties, the people, the plaintiff and the defendant. They're the only two people in court. How can a judge, a federal judge, issue an order that affects everybody else other than those in front of him or her? How is that possible?
It shouldn't be possible, Senator, but district courts do it all the time. I think on the theory that the courts need to enjoin a federal policy from going into effect, and they often will enjoin it as nationwide, so all non-parties are protected by that injunction.
I thought that if you wanted to affect parties who aren't in court, you had to file a class action.
That's correct, Senator.
So why don't the federal judges, instead of issuing a universal injunction with no legal basis, tell the plaintiff, look, you got to go file a class action if you want to impact parties who aren't subject to my court?
Senator, the Department of Justice makes that argument all the time in our briefs. I think in many cases class actions would be inappropriate. They wouldn't, the plaintiffs couldn't satisfy Rule 23 to establish a class.
So they couldn't?
Correct.
So they preferred to ask for a universal injunction.
Yes.
Okay. Does does this encourage forum shopping?
Yes, Senator. Not only does it encourage forum shopping, but also district shopping and filing multiple strategic lawsuits to find one judge that will enjoin a single policy nationwide. Where if you have 5 lawsuits, a plaintiff, only one of those 5 cases needs to be successful.
And both sides, all sides, have used this as a way to forum shop, haven't they?
I think plaintiffs, regardless of administrations, will often file cases in the most favorable forum. Yes.
Okay, we've established that there's no basis in statute and no basis in Supreme Court precedent for universal injunction. How about at common law? I mean, universal injunction is basically an equitable remedy. Did this exist in common law courts in England on which our law is based?
I don't believe so, Senator. I think the government has cited cases from the Supreme Court that says, courts are really bound by the scope of relief that a court in equity would have granted back in England before the founding, and the courts at that time would grant relief to the parties in the case, not far beyond the.
A universal injunction as a remedy is unknown in English common law, is it not?
I haven't done the research that far back, but I'm not aware of
I have.
Okay.
It's unknown. Wasn't part of equity. Only about only about 27 universal injunctions were issued in the 20th century. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, Senator.
But 86 of them were issued against President Trump in his first term. Is that correct?
I don't know the specific number, but they were a high number.
And so far in President Trump's second term, 30 universal injunctions have been issued against him, have they not?
Senator, I don't have a specific number, but that sounds about right.
The universal injunction has become a weapon against the Trump administration, has it not?
Yes.
And tell me again in my last 10 seconds, tell me the basis for universal injunction in Article 3. I read Article 3, which defines judicial power. Where does it mention universal injunction?
It does not, Senator. It says courts are to decide the case or controversy before them, which is based on the parties to the case.
So the Congress could act and say, look, federal judges, you render a decision to a plaintiff or a defendant, but you can't impact people outside of your courtroom other than through a class action. That's why God created class actions, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that was pretty interesting to say the least, wouldn't you say? I mean, let me know in the comments below how you feel about this. And I know that there's a lot of MAGAs and Trump supporters and people who support the Republican Party and Trump's agenda out there kicking and screaming about this. But as one that has to literally go in and grab information, you got to hear both sides. You've just got to hear both sides, or else, because you could take this piece of information and say, okay, I'm taking this and running with it because I like the sound of being able to combat these things, right? I combat the Democrats' agenda against Donald Trump. But to get the full picture here, I'm bringing up another argument from the Democrats now. And if you would listen to this, it's about 2 minutes to their side of the story on using these universal national injunctions against the Republican Party. So take a look at this, and then we can have a quick discussion afterwards. Let me know what you think.
Were you in Congress when President Obama was president?
Yes, I was.
And you were in Congress when George W. Bush was president?
Yes.
And you were in Congress.
I was here with Calvin Coolidge, if you're going back that far.
I don't want to age you here, but you were in Congress when Joe Biden was president.
I was.
You didn't introduce this bill during any of those time periods in question, right? Notwithstanding, as you said, there were many nationwide injunctions being issued by federal judges at that time. Yeah. But lo and behold, it's only in the last 60 days that you decided to introduce this bill, right?
In fairness, there was a period of time when I was chairing a different committee.
I understand.
But also, former Congressman Mark Meadows introduced the bill previously. So it wasn't originally my bill, and it wasn't originally Mr. Jones's bill. This bill has come up a couple of times under both Republicans and Democrats.
Let me ask you a different way. I'll ask you a different way. You seem
You don't like that way? That's a good way.
You seem very passionate about ending nationwide injunctions.
Not ending, reining in.
Fine. We'll use your word. You feel very passionate about reining in nationwide injunctions, right?
Unless they pertain to the plaintiffs before the
You're
judge.
putting a lot of disclaimers on it. I mean, you call this bill the No Rogue Rulings Act of 2025. I don't think I'm misstating your position that, subject to the disclaimers that you've provided, you believe that there should be reining in of nationwide injunctions, right? That's why you're here. That's why you're submitting this bill, right?
That's correct.
Okay. During President Biden's tenure, there were 14 nationwide injunctions. Did you denounce any of them?
I'm not denouncing any of these.
Did you believe any of them
injunctions.
should be reined in?
I haven't looked at the details of each one of the cases, but to the
Was there any that you made a public statement about?
Wait a second.
There were 14 of them.
To the extent that judges were ruling beyond the plaintiffs before them,
Sure.
I hereby would say that they were wrong to do.
Okay.
The fact is, judges should represent a decision for the plaintiffs before them.
Your team may need to go online and delete some of the social media posts that you've previously posted, right? Are you familiar with a case called Missouri versus Biden?
I don't recall that.
This was a case regarding social media moderation by the administration.
Oh, sure.
Sure. And on July 5th of 2023, this is on Twitter or X, what it was called back then, you said here on your social media, quote, "A federal judge is stopping the White House from colluding with big tech to censor your free speech on social media. Releasing this decision on Independence Day was right on target." Okay, this is your tweet, July 5th of 2023, celebrating a district court nationwide injunction against the Biden administration made by a district court judge in the Monroe Division of the Western District of Louisiana. You can understand why we would be very skeptical about the motives of our colleagues bringing this bill today, because they are disappointed and frustrated with decisions that have not gone in President Trump's favor, when as recently as a year and a half ago, you and many other of our Republican colleagues were praising these nationwide injunctions, clamoring for more judges to issue nationwide injunctions. And now you've seen the light? Explain to me how that happens.
So what's good for the geese is good for the gander, or are they abusing it? Are the Democrats abusing it with the ones that they're putting against Donald Trump? Or are they not abusing it? Or they, think about it, the Republicans could have been using the same system against Joe Biden meticulously. Or are the Democrats just better at fighting against an agenda that they disagree with? I mean, let's be honest. The Democrats are kicking Trump's tail with this. They really are, and the Republicans can't take it. So now they want to change the rules of the game that they've been using for a while, not that it's even constitutional. These laws were never even put in place, but they ended up being used and becoming part of law. So it's interesting to see both sides of this, and I think the argument goes well for both sides. They both have a really good argument on getting rid of them or keeping them. What say you? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for watching. Please, once again, I ask you that you like and subscribe and become part of this family here, as we are growing and growing and growing, and we're very grateful for you being here with us in this journey. Thank you very much again. We'll see you on the next one. Love you all. God is good. Bye-bye.